All right, folks. I'm going to do a little bit of a live coding here. This is not going to be as polished as most of my stuff, but I thought I'd try out sort of this live coding thing. So I'm updating my SickFits application here, and I'm looking at moving this local state, which is whether the cart is open or closed. It's just a Boolean, true or false. Trying to move that over to using context because I did initially do it in Apollo local data, but I think they're changing this, but it's just too much for me to have to write a resolver just for a Boolean. Plus, like I'm not showing context in this course at all, and I thought it would be interesting. So I'm gonna open up. So the where we've got it here is this is how it works right now. We have a local state query that gets us cart open Boolean. And then we have a mutation that toggles that to be true or false. And then I've already converted it over to hooks here. So it's use query, pass it the local state query. That's this one right here. And then when somebody clicks the close button, we write to the cache directly. So I don't even think I'm using this toggle cart mutation anymore because they had updated how this works since I recorded the course. But still too much for me. I'm going to use context instead. So let's take this out of here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to rip out all of the Apollo stuff. So let's get rid of all that. And let's get rid of this on click here. Let's just console.log, close it. And then the cart is open or true. Let's just make a Boolean. Cart open is equal to true. We'll just keep it open for now. And we'll get rid of this use query. And we don't need that. So this is how I was directly writing to the Apollo client. Since we don't need that, I don't need Apollo that at all. And then we don't need the query or mutation. We don't need GQL. Don't need adopt. I don't think so. Oh, I do need that. All right, looks like all of these we don't need. All right, does it still work? Local state query. Oh, we got to get rid of that. Export here. We don't need that. Now let's see what's going on. Attempt to import error. Oh, that's in the nav. We don't need that either. Oh, so this the other way that we could open it is in the nav because we want to close it in the cart, but we want to open it in the nav. So we'll need to access our opener function in both of these. So let's remove it from the nav here. We also go down here and on click toggle cart. So on click, let's just say console.log, open the cart. Okay, attempt to import local state query. That's not an error anymore. So it's giving us grief here. Local. Let's just do a quick local state query. Let's see where we're referencing that in our tests and in our with data. All right, let's open up with data now. And obviously we don't need that here anymore. And get rid of all of this local data here. That's unnecessary. I love this bracket highlighter. Like I'm like, which bracket do I close it to? It's the yellow one. Okay, toggle cart mutation is not defined. That is happening. All right, we gotta get rid of wherever this toggle cart mutation is happening. Oh, look at that! I just clicked on that and it opened up in my VS Code. That's handy. Oh, obviously we have to get rid of this mutation and this render prop. And then we'll get rid of the closing render prop. Okay. Now why is it giving me grief about this? Oh, there's no type on this button. All right, good. It's looking good. Don't worry about these errors. This is related to server side rendering, which I don't have working yet. All right, so now we need like a Boolean that will flip and open and close this thing. So let's go ahead and make that. We can actually get rid of all this as well. All right, so this needs to happen. Like, let's take a look at our app. We've got our cart and we have our nav. That's where that functionality needs to live. So we could put it in a couple of different spots. I'll put it up nice and high in my app, and then I'll move it lower if that's okay. So I'm gonna open up. I don't know what do we got here? App. Yeah, I'm already using my Apollo provider in my app.js. So let's make the provider in here as well. So close everything else. Let's open this up. And we've got our components, got our lib, we got our pages. Now we need to make our create context themes. All right, let's throw it in our components right now, and we'll call that local state.js. And we'll import create context from React. Then we need to make it, so const local state context is equal to create context. And inside of that, let's just say cart open is equal to, let's do false. And then we'll export, we'll say const local state provider is equal to local state context dot provider. And we'll export that from there. Now, if we go into our app here, we need to then insert that provider. So import local state provider from pages, components. I got to go up a level into the components, into local state. Okay. And I believe we can just wrap this like that. Nothing broke. Let's take a look at our components. There we go. Let's see if we can find it. That's not the provider we want. That's not the provider we want. Somewhere in here. These are all different providers from Styled Components and Apollo. Somewhere in here, there is a provider that gives us access to the data we want. Whatever, we'll find it. Okay, so we got a local. Now, how do I pull that data in is the question. So we'll go into our local state. Actually, we'll go into our cart.js, and we'll use a hook. So import, well, that's got to go up here. We'll do that right at the top. Import, use context from React. const data. I don't know what to call it. Use context. And we need to pass it reference to our context. So we need to export that from here and then import it in here. I'll pass that in and let's just console log the data. Oh boy. React has detected a change in the order of hooks called by cart. This will lead to bugs if not fixed. For more information, read the rules of hooks. Call hooks from React functional components. That's what I did. Call hooks from custom hooks. Yeah, that's fine. I will probably need to make a custom hook in order to update it, but that's fine. Oh, here it's telling me. React hook use context is called conditionally. React hooks must be called the exact order in every component. Oh, you know why? It's because I have a condition right here. I bet that is it. That's interesting. Nice errors, React. Okay. Now we're getting undefined. That's fine. I think I have to pass value here. This is not GraphQL. It's an object. Values, maybe? All right. Gotta look up the docs. Create context. Themes.light. Oh, obviously. No, I'm passing the default value when I create the context. But then when you create the context, the provider, you also pass the value. Context. Let's see here. I even have my own video. Does my video come up when I Google it? I don't know how to use it. I can watch my own video. When to use, create context. You can pass it a default value. That makes sense. Provider. All right, let's try move this to our app.js. Say the value is equal to cart open. It's true. There we go. Okay, so then we go back into our cart and we can just destructure that here. So just destructure cart open. And we'll to get rid of that temporary Boolean, get rid of the console log, and we will have open this cart open. Good. And then if I change this to false, it should close. There we go. Beautiful. All right, so that's the first hunk. Next, we need to write some updaters for this thing, because certainly when you want to click on a button, we need like a function that's going to update state. So I think we need to modify this thing to be a hook or something like that. And I've never actually done this with hooks. I've done this, if you watch my video, I've done it with a a class, but I've not done it with a create context with a hook. So, I don't know. There's probably a lot of ways to do this. I'm going to create our own hook that is called like use local state, or maybe just use cart. Let's make it use local state. So I'm gonna get a function called use local state. And then inside of here, we need state. So we'll say const cart open and set cart open is equal to use state. And then here we'll say it is true. Actually, yeah, let's just make this. Let's just make this just for the cart. I'm sure that's a better idea. We'll say use cart open. We got to import use state from React. I think we need to use context inside of here. Actually, no, I think we need to make our own provider because we need this state to be like, we're not going to pass it here anymore. It's going to be local state provider. Oh, okay. So, let's make a function called cart state provider. And in that, we have our state. And from that, we can return the local state provider, where we have the value. By the way, the reason why you can pass it to create context and to provider is that if use context doesn't find a provider higher up in the tree, it will use that value as a default. And apparently that's useful for testing. So say value is equal to cart open. And we'll also pass it the set cart open. And then here, we just pass children. Destructure that from props. Then we will, instead of exporting local state provider, we'll export our cart state provider. And we swap that out. Okay. Now, if I go to my cart, can I just console log cart open? Hey, that's cool. And then can we also set cart open? Can we log? Do we get access to that function now? We do. Okay. So I think what we could do here is we'll make a function called toggle cart that will simply set cart open to be the opposite of the cart open value. And then we'll export that sucker, or not export it, but we'll surface it via the provider. And then we'll import that sucker in our cart. And then when somebody clicks on it, should that be able to close it? It works. All right. Obviously, it's not going to work when I open the cart yet. So let's just look at that. Does that make sense? Use context, local state context. the context will surface to us both the state and an updater function. Okay, I like it. Could I... Yeah, I'm thinking, like, can I expand this to more local state? Let's just keep it simple right now. I might come back and change that. It's yelling at me about prop types. That's fine. I'll fix that later. All right, now I want to know in the nav where we have this button, how do we use that? Okay, so here we go. So in our cart here, let's make this its own hook. So that we don't have to import both use context and the local state context. Can we make it its own hook? How would we do that? Function, use cart. In here, we would use context. We'll say const all is equal to use context, local state context. And we just return all. Export that sucker. And can we go into our cart now and get rid of use context? And we'll just import use cart from there. That'll work. Boom. Cool. Now we have a nice little hook. I did something similar to use user. If you take a look at our user component here, I made this little thing here. I don't even actually know. Maybe tell me, is this a valid hook or not? So instead of having to import use query and the current user query on every single one, I just made a nice little hook that would just return the piece of data that I want. And now I can just say something like this: me is equal to use user. So we have our use cart hook here. Okay. Now can I just go into my nav and import use cart from local state? And then we'll go right here and say const. What did we call it? Toggle cart. If this was TypeScript, it would have auto-filled it for me. Toggle cart is equal to use cart. And then I believe this button can just be wired up to toggle cart. It works. Beautiful. I like that. Let me know if that's the best way that you would go about this. I think that looks pretty good to me. Nice and tidy, all in its own file. And then we can just use that cart. Maybe I'll rename this file to something named cart, but that's the basics of it. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you later.